At least I don't live in a shoebox, my sister Amanda sneered, swirling her wine glass as she looked around my apartment with barely concealed disgust. Our parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats but said nothing. As usual. I gripped my fork tighter, trying to maintain my composure. This was supposed to be a simple family dinner, my first time hosting since moving into my new place. I'd spent hours cooking Mom's lasagna recipe, setting out my nicest plates, which Amanda had already pointed out were from Target, and trying to make everything perfect. I mean, really, Sophia? Amanda continued, wrinkling her nose. You're 32. Don't you think it's time to grow up and get a real place? This is just embarrassing. I looked around my small but cozy one-bedroom apartment. Sure, it wasn't a luxury high-rise like Amanda's, but I'd worked hard to make it home. The walls were painted in warm colors, decorated with local art I carefully collected. My tiny kitchen might be cramped, but it was organized and spotless. Every piece of furniture had been chosen with care, some restored by my own hands. Amanda, Mom finally interjected weakly, the lasagna is lovely, isn't it? I suppose, Amanda shrugged. Though the cheese tastes like the generic brand. Really, Sophia, you could at least spring for quality ingredients when you're having guests. Dad suddenly became very interested in his plate, avoiding eye contact. I felt my cheeks burn. The cheese was generic because I'd spent most of my latest paycheck helping Dad with his medical bills, something Amanda knew nothing about. She was too busy with her perfect life, her perfect job, and her perfect penthouse to notice our parents' struggles. Not all of us can afford artisanal cheese from Whole Foods, I said quietly. Some of us have different priorities. Amanda laughed, that sharp, cruel sound I'd grown so familiar with over the years. Oh yes, your priorities. Like that pathetic little bookstore you work at. Honestly, Sophia, when are you going to get a real job? The bookstore is a real job, I defended, though my voice sounded small even to my own ears. I'm the assistant manager now. Assistant manager of a failing business, how impressive. Amanda rolled her eyes. Meanwhile, I just closed another multi-million-dollar deal at work. But I suppose we can't all be successful. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I need to check on dessert, I muttered, escaping to the kitchen. Through the thin walls, I could hear Amanda continuing her commentary. Did you see her furniture? All secondhand, unsure. Probably from Goodwill. It's like she's not even trying. I leaned against the counter, taking deep breaths. The worst part wasn't Amanda's cruel words. I was used to those. It was our parents' silence, their tacit acceptance of her behavior. They'd always been this way, letting Amanda's sharp tongue run unchecked while expecting me to keep the peace. Opening the oven to check on the apple pie, I heard a loud creak from the floorboard near my feet. One of the boards was loose. I'd been meaning to fix it. As I shifted my weight, something caught my eye in the gap beneath. Was that paper? Glancing toward the dining room to make sure no one was watching, I crouched down and carefully pried up the loose board. There, tucked into the dusty space beneath, was a small leather-bound book. My heart skipped a beat as I realized what it was, a diary. The cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age. Opening it carefully, I saw a familiar looping handwriting. Property of Amanda Mitchell. The date on the first page was from 15 years ago, when this apartment had been her first place after college. Sophia, where's that dessert? Amanda's imperious voice drifted in from the dining room. Coming. I called back, quickly tucking the diary into my apron pocket. My heart was racing. Why had Amanda hidden her diary under the floorboards? And more importantly, what secrets was she trying to keep buried? I served the pie, watching Amanda closely. She seemed oblivious, continuing her running commentary on everything wrong with my life choices. But now, with the diary burning a hole in my pocket, her words seemed to hold less sting. After what felt like an eternity, my parents finally made their excuses to leave. Amanda lingered behind, taking one last contemptuous look around my apartment. You know, if you ever want advice on how to actually make something of yourself, she started. I'll be sure to ask someone else. I cut her off, surprising both of us with my firmness. Something about finding that diary had shifted something in me, given me a strange new confidence. Amanda's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. You heard me. Have a good night, Amanda. After they left, I sat on my couch, secondhand from a local vintage shop, not Goodwill, and pulled out the diary with trembling hands. As I opened it and began to read, my eyes widened. Dear Diary, the first entry began, "I did something terrible today. Something that could ruin everything if anyone ever found out." I settled deeper into my pathetic couch, a slow smile spreading across my face. Something told me my perfect sister's life wasn't quite as perfect as she pretended, and I was about to find out exactly why she felt the need to hide this diary all those years ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Thanks for that sad excuse for a dinner. Next time, let's do it at my place where we can have some actual quality." I didn't respond, just turned the page of her diary instead. Let her think she won this round. Something told me the real game was just beginning. I stayed up half the night reading Amanda's diary, each page revealing more than the last. The perfect image my sister had crafted over the years was unraveling before my eyes. The first bombshell came early. Amanda hadn't landed her first big job through talent and hard work, as she'd always claimed. Instead, she discovered her boss was embezzling money and used that information to blackmail him into promoting her. "I know what's wrong," she'd written, "but who really cares how you get ahead as long as you do? Besides, Richard deserves it. He's the one stupid enough to leave evidence lying around." But that was just the beginning. As I read further, a pattern emerged. Amanda's entire career was built on manipulation, blackmail, and taking credit for other people's work. She'd ruined careers, stolen ideas, and stepped on anyone who got in her way. The most shocking revelation came near the end. 3 years ago, when our parents were struggling financially, they'd come to Amanda for help. She'd agreed to loan them money, but had made them sign over their house as collateral, something they'd been too embarrassed to tell me. "Mom and Dad don't know I'm planning to sell their house next year," she'd written. "They'll never be able to repay the loan on their fixed income, but that's their problem. I already found a developer who's interested in the property." My hands shook with anger. All those times Amanda had mocked me for helping our parents with pocket change, she'd been secretly plotting to take their home. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the county records office. Sure enough, there was a deed transfer from 3 years ago, signing our childhood home over to Amanda. But there was something else. A recent listing agreement with a development company. She was really going to do it. She was going to sell our parents' house out from under them. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Just drove past your sad little apartment building. There was a homeless man digging through the dumpster. Your new neighbor?" I stared at her message, a plan forming in my mind. Amanda had no idea I'd found her diary, no idea I knew about her schemes. For once, I had the upper hand. That evening, I invited our parents over for coffee. They seemed surprised. Usually, they only came over when Amanda organized family gatherings. "Is everything okay, honey?" Mom asked, settling onto my cheap couch. "We're not used to these spontaneous invitations." "Actually," I said carefully, "I need to ask you something about the loan Amanda gave you." Their faces fell. Dad shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "She told you about that?" "Not exactly," I replied. "But I know she made you sign over the house. And I know she's planning to sell it." Mom's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. "What?" "No, she wouldn't. She promised we could stay as long as we needed." I pulled out copies of the documents I found. As they read through them, their faces went pale. "There's a listing agreement with Cedar Grove developers," I explained gently. "They're planning to tear down the whole neighborhood for luxury condos." But where would we go?" Mom's voice quivered. "We can't afford rent anywhere else in the area." "You're not going anywhere," I said firmly, "because we're going to stop her." Dad looked up, hope flickering in his eyes for the first time. "How?" I hesitated for a moment. Part of me felt guilty about using Amanda's diary against her. It felt like stooping to her level. But then I remembered all the lives she'd ruined, all the people she'd hurt in her climb to the top. "Let's just say I found some interesting information about how Amanda's really been running her business," I said. Information she definitely wouldn't want getting out. I laid out my plan to them. It wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting our parents and making things right. By the time they left that evening, we had a strategy in place. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Amanda. "Just closed another huge deal at work. But don't worry, your little bookstory's cute too." In a pathetic sort of way. I smiled, thinking of all her diary entries about those huge deals and how she'd really closed them. "Congratulations," I texted back. You must be so proud of everything you've accomplished. The next family dinner would be interesting indeed. Very interesting. What Amanda didn't realize was that her perfect life was about to crumble, not because of my actions, but because of her own. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth come to light. I picked up her diary again, running my fingers over the worn leather cover. "Don't worry, sis," I murmured. "Your secrets are safe with me, for now." The next family dinner was at Amanda's penthouse apartment. As I rode the elevator up, her diary sat safely in my bag, along with copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. "Welcome to what a real home looks like," Amanda smirked as she opened the door. "Though I suppose your quaint tastes wouldn't appreciate fine living." I smiled serenely, noticing how our parents were looking around nervously, probably thinking about the listing agreement I'd shown them. "It's lovely, Amanda." "Very, you." Throughout dinner, Amanda couldn't resist her usual jabs. Each time she made a snide comment about my job or apartment, I just nodded pleasantly, which seemed to irritate her more than any comeback would have. Finally, as we were having dessert, she couldn't contain herself. "What's with you tonight? You're being weird." "Actually," I said, setting down my fork, "I wanted to talk to you about something. About the loan you gave Mom and Dad." The color drained from Amanda's face. "That's none of your business. It became my business when I found out you're planning to sell their house to developers." The room went silent. Amanda's eyes darted between our parents and me. "Who told you that?" "You did," I replied, pulling out her diary, or rather, your diary did. Amanda lunged across the table, but I held the diary out of reach. "Careful, sis, you wouldn't want me dropping this. It might fall open to the page about how you blackmailed Richard for your first promotion. Or maybe the part about stealing Sarah's client portfolio." "You had no right," she hissed. "Like you had no right to take our parents home, or ruin all those people's careers." Our parents watched in shocked silence as I laid out everything I'd discovered: the blackmail, the stolen ideas, the ruined lives. With each revelation, Amanda's perfect facade crumbled further. "So here's what's going to happen," I said calmly. "You're going to sign the house back over to Mom and Dad. Cancel the deal with the developers, and you're going to start treating our family with respect." Amanda laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Or what? You'll tell everyone my secrets. Who would believe you over me? The ethics board at your firm might be interested, and I'm sure your clients would love to know how you really landed their accounts." For the first time in our lives, I saw real fear in Amanda's eyes. "I just want to know why," Mom said softly. "Why would you do this to us?" Amanda's composure finally broke. "Because I was tired of being perfect. Do you know how hard it is, always having to be the successful one? While she pointed at me, gets to be the family disappointment and everyone still loves her." I blinked in surprise. "You think everyone loves me?" "They do, even when you mess up. Even when you're living in that tiny apartment and working that dead-end job, they're still proud of you. I have to fight for every scrap of approval." "Because your approval is built on lies," I said gently. "I might not have a perfect life, but at least it's honestly mine." The next hour was intense. There were tears, accusations, and finally, surprisingly, honesty. Amanda admitted to feeling trapped by her own success, constantly having to maintain the illusion of perfection. Our parents apologized for enabling her behavior and keeping secrets. In the end, Amanda signed the house back over to our parents. She also agreed to seek therapy to deal with her competitive nature and need for control. Months later, things are different. Amanda downsized to a smaller apartment and started rebuilding her career, legitimately this time. Our family dinners are quieter now, but more genuine. Sometimes Amanda even comes to my shoebox apartment and we talk like real sisters. The diary sits in my desk drawer, a reminder that perfection often hides the deepest flaws. But I haven't opened it again. Some secrets are better left in the past, especially when the future holds the promise of something real. Yesterday, Amanda texted me, "Your apartment's still tiny, but the coffee's not bad. Same time next week." I smiled and replied, "Bring real cheese this time." Sometimes the best victories aren't about winning. They're about healing what was broken all along.